So today we're going to take a look at this, my favorite watch in the world, the Yachtmaster 40 Rhodium. Let's check it out. This week, what have I got? I've got the Rolex Yachtmaster 40. This is probably one of my favorite Rolexes, maybe one of my favorite watches. It's a real stunner. It's also kind of got a place close in my heart because it was the first Rolex I ever bought. I bought it actually in the AD. It wasn't cheap, but it was definitely a beautiful piece. I mean, it is steel sports, even though it has platinum on it. And that kind of just makes it extra special. One of my favorite things about this watch is not just that it is super handsome and kind of dressy and sporty at the same time, but also I don't really see many people with them on, especially not the late ones. I've seen the older ones with the kind of very bright silver dial, which I don't like as much, but I don't see people with the Yachtmaster 40 on. I see a lot of Submariners everywhere. I see some GMTs, of course, but the Yachtmaster for some reason kind of feels special. I don't know whether I want that to change. If it does change, the value of my watch will go up, which is really nice. Right now it's selling on the grey market for pretty much what it sells for at Rolex, if you can get one from Rolex, which you pretty much can't. You don't see them much. Every now and then one pops up, but obviously they're not as rare as the Submariners and the GMT Master 2 Pepsis and the Batmans, but they still aren't readily available. It's not like a two-tone Datejust or a Day-Date that you see in the window of every Rolex place, or a Cellini or something like that. When I'm walking around with my Submariners on, it always, unless I'm wearing the two-tone one, I really just feel like one of the regular people. You know, I was in a cafe the other day and there was a woman there. She must have been 55 years old, you know, making espressos on the machine, and she had a bloody Submariner on, like a 1980s Submariner, just hanging off with her jewellery and stuff. It's like you just see them everywhere, and it just bums me out a little bit about the Submariners. Just like everyone's kind of on the same bandwagon, for good reason, of course. That's like complaining about, you know, you keep seeing Les Pauls or Fender Stratocasters on stage. Yeah, because it's a really good choice for a guitarist, but I don't know, gets a bit repetitive, and I always feel a little bit kind of special with my Yacht. It doesn't feel like kind of an FU watch, like I'm the big shot kind of watch. It doesn't give me that feeling when I'm wearing it. It feels beautiful, and it feels elegant, and it feels graceful and manly, and that's the kind of thing I like. I don't like big, stupid stuff. The great thing about this watch is, you know, you're wearing something that is powerful and elegant at the same time, and a little bit under the radar, a little bit. It takes a second glance to kind of say, oh my God, you know, what is that? Is that a Submariner? You know, with something particular about it. You know, it's got, at first glance, looks like a Rolex you haven't seen yet, a little bit like that, like a model that you go, wait, what is that? Like, I don't really know what that is. And it's been out there the whole time. Unfortunately, when you go on the Rolex website, they have the different categories, you know, the Submariner, the Cosmograph, Daytona, etc., etc. You know, they show us the two-tone bluesy Submariner. That's not the most popular model. The most popular would be probably the all black. They show the Daytona area, and the one they have kind of on the main page is a kind of an odd Daytona, not even on a bracelet. And with the Yachtmaster, it's a similar issue. They're showing the Yachtmaster 2, which is a very, very different thing, and has nothing really to do with the Yachtmaster 40 or the 42, which just was released recently. So you've got to click on that and go in and scroll down and have a look at the other Yachtmaster options. And I think that's the reason why the Yachtmaster flies, at least the 40, flies slightly under the radar with people, because people kind of continue on. They bypass the Yachtmaster section because of that ugly Yachtmaster 2 thing, which is the weirdest watch they have. I don't know who would want that watch. It has like a regatta timer thing on it. I mean, unless you have a yacht and you do yacht racing. I know some people with yachts, they don't even do any racing. They just sit on their yacht and get tanned. So, people are kind of getting turned off that, and they're continuing past it and going straight for the Submariner and the GMT. Of course, in the GMT section, the front cover one is the Pepsi on the Jubilee, which is kind of the one that everybody's after in the GMT. So I'm going to take a close look at it and compare it to some famous models of Rolex and other watches, so you can kind of get some side-by-sides. We're going to flip the camera around and take a closer look. Here we go. And here it is, the Rolex Yachtmaster 40, reference 116622. The 40 refers to the measurements from side to side, from here to here or here to here. So not from here to here. That would include the crown or the crown guards. That's about the measurement of all the usual suspects in the Rolex line, like the Submariner and GMT and so on. But this one wears a little slimmer and more elegant, and I'll show you why. Its height is only about 11.5 millimeters, or 12 if you include the Cyclops, which is quite slim for a watch that's essentially a sports watch. You can go diving in it, but not deeply. You can go swimming, let's put it that way. I wouldn't do diving, but you can certainly jump off your yacht and have a little splash around in the ocean and then get back on your yacht. There's no deep sea diving with this. It's about 100 meters water resistant. The first thing that really kind of jumps out at you with this watch is that it appears to be a stainless steel sports watch, because it's of its mono color look, its gray look overall. It looks like it's just all stainless steel, but that is not the case. This is actually a precious metal watch, or it has precious metal on it, and that would be the bezel. The bezel is made of platinum, or as Rolex like to call it, Rhodium, which is assumably their slight blend of platinum and steel, I believe. Now, as you may or may not know, Rolex have a foundry, their own foundry, and they like to make their own metals and precious metals. Quite fascinating, but that's the way they do it. So they call this Rhodium. It's platinum, and it's one slab of platinum. And what they have done, instead of applying gold indices or numbers like you would see on other bezels from other models and a similar price range, what they've done is they've sandblasted the numbers and indices out, and they kind of stick up and protrude. I'm not sure if the camera's catching it there, but they protrude from the bezel. So it's quite remarkable craftsmanship, and once again Rolex showing everyone else how it's supposed to be done. So the rest of the watch, the head of the watch, the crown, the bracelet and the clasp are all steel, stainless steel. It's Rolex's 904L steel, which of course they claim is the best steel in the world. Most watches out there in the market will use, if they're using stainless steel, they will use 316L steel, which is also an excellent steel, quite robust, quite strong, but doesn't quite have the same silky shine that 904L steel has, and certainly doesn't feel as silky on the wrist. Now, turning to the dial, there are a couple of different configurations for this particular model. There is another one with a blue dial and a red hand and red writing. As you can see, this one is grey, a kind of a sunburst grey, and Rolex like to call it rhodium. And it has this distinct pop of colour there with the blue seconds hand and the blue Yachtmaster. Personally, I love this configuration because the whole idea of it being used on a boat or on a yacht with this kind of silvery shine and the pop of blue, it's kind of indicative or reminds me of the colors you will see at sea. And so to me, this one is truly the most beautiful. A lot of people prefer the blue. I don't know why. Maybe it's just got more loudness to it or something. Personally, when I see the blue, I think it looks a little bit childish next to the Rhodium. The Rhodium has a kind of a masculinity and a maturity to it. But also the Rhodium does some funny tricks, and I'm trying to turn the watch around as much as I can so you see what I'm talking about. As the light catches the dial, you will see a lot of weird things happening with the color of the dial. There are certain angles where this watch looks black, where the dial looks black. If I catch it right there, you see, it looks completely black or almost completely black right there. And then as you move it, this kind of bursts of light and reflections of light begin to catch the dial, and it becomes more gray and steel and silvery. There are some angles where it looks almost completely kind of white, shiny silver, depending on where you are. Now it has gold indices, white gold indices, like all the other watches, kind of in a similar range from Rolex. And of course it has the Cyclops here with the date complication. The inside of the watch has the 31-35 movement, same as what you'll get in a Submariner. Very, very famous movement, very, very trusted movement, tried and tested over the years. And of course, essentially this is a Submariner because, of course, the history with this watch is that Rolex were trying to perfect the Submariner. They were trying to improve on the Submariner design. So they started with what they had, the pre-ceramic, back when with the pre-ceramic Submariner, where that had kind of a slimmer contours like this one has. And they went a little too far, and they made basically this design, and they realized they had kind of wandered off the map a little bit, and it was no longer the Submariner, and they should put another name on it. And they had the Yachtmaster name copyrighted from many years before, so they decided to use that name for this. I'm not sure if that name has been a blessing or a curse, because I think in the watch world, this watch kind of gets overlooked a little bit because of the name. I think people associate it with only yachts, and there's only a certain kind of crowd that have yachts or go on a yacht. It's a little bit for the kind of snob or the yuppie, or at least that's what people feel that it is. I don't own a yacht. I don't have that kind of money, and I don't really hang around with those kind of people anyway. And I still think this watch is one of the best Rolex editions ever. For me, it is kind of the perfect blend of a lot of different Rolex designs. It kind of lands at a perfect spot between sporty and dressy. And I'm going to outline a few differences. I actually have a Submariner here. You can see from the heads of the watches. Now, considering again that this watch was originally supposed to be the upgrade of this one, and I think it still is an upgrade on the Submariner. As you can see, the Submariner really doesn't have much of an interesting contour to it on the sides. The head of the watch is a big slab of steel. This is, of course, the ceramic Submariner. It's not the pre-ceramic, which is a bit of more of a delicate kind of design, a bit more elegant. Once they brought in what they call the super case, the maxi lugs here, things got really just a little bit kind of dumb. You know, this is a flat, big slab that the watch is built on top of or inside of. So it kind of has a kind of a rough and tough look to it, especially when you put it next to this. As you can see, the sides of this they have beautiful, elegant contours, and it just makes the watch a much more elegant and beautiful watch. This will slide under your cuff very nicely if you're wearing a suit, if you're going out to dinner and you want something a bit more aggressive and more powerful than a classic dress watch. You could easily wear this to a friend's wedding, and it will just have a super elegance to it, especially because of these high gloss parts to it. The case, of course, is high gloss also. It's not brushed or satin as the Submariner is on the case. And of course, the bracelet has the satin and high gloss links. So the high gloss are all down the center. These are all solid links, of course, and they're beautifully spaced so they don't pinch your hairs on your arm if you're a hairy guy like I am. Check that out. So I'm going to bring in the GMT. So as you can see with the GMT, it's just it's a lot squarer looking than the Yacht. The Yacht has elegance to it, and it carries off the look a lot more elegantly. It's much more beautiful. Now, there are some similarities with the GMT that need to be discussed. They are both bidirectional bezels. So what that means is they turn in both directions. You can turn it back and forth like that. The difference with the GMT one is that it goes in hour blocks. So as I turn it, it kind of resists my fingers for a moment, and then pops over an hour. I mean an hour in the sense of the 24-hour bezel here. It goes in hour blocks like that. So you feel resistance, and it pops into these different scalloped out positions, like so. Whereas on the Yacht, it goes by minutes. So these are minute jumps, and so it feels a lot kind of more detailed as you turn it. So I just feel that the watch has a kind of a hybrid, a kind of a blend of all the great Rolex diver style watches. I feel like if the GMT and the Rolex Explorer 1 had a baby, it would be this. You know, a very special baby because it's got platinum, but it's kind of a mix of, from the side, it could even be mistaken as an Explorer almost, but from the front, it could be mistaken for some sort of GMT or Submariner. So why do I think this is one of the best Rolex watches ever made? Well, it was originally designed to be the upgrade on a Submariner. And it is that. It is a Submariner 2.0, if you will. It has a lot of the functionality of the Submariner. It has the same movement on the inside. It has the date complication, but it just has a little bit more elegance and class and style to it. It's kind of a rich man's Submariner, if you will. It's got a lot of beauty to it, and also can be brought into water and can be used in a sports manner. It's been a long time since Submariners were really used as, you know, dive watches. It's not really about diving to the bottom of the ocean anymore. So really this watch is about that. It's maintaining its function as a workhorse watch, but it's also just bringing it into a kind of a classy world as well. So to me, it's kind of the perfect Rolex watch, because we want these watches to be beautiful, we want them to be elegant, we want them to be classy, and we want them to shine. And this one really does all of those things. It can be used, as I say, you know, going to a wedding, or it can be used, you know, jumping off the side of your boat, because the Yachtmaster to me, is the most beautiful watch they ever made. And to me, it just makes the sub and even the black GMT that I have, it looks like the GMT put a suit on and washed its hair and, you know, got dressed up. It's basically, it just has a classiness and an elegance that the GMTs and the subs and the Explorer 1 and Explorer 2 do not have. It's pretty amazing.